Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. In this video, I'm continuing the analysis into human rights. The last section, we discussed the idea of human rights as the second great transformation, unfolding from Karl Polanyi's discourse on the Great Transformation. And what we saw in his account of the Great Transformation was that we moved, conceptually speaking, from a society in which the social was intimately connected between the interaction, socio-economic, cultural, moral interaction between individuals within a community, to an institution where that interaction was facilitated by and ultimately dominated by interaction via the marketplace. And I gave some sort of cursory examples to make sense of that. What we really saw as one of the greatest allegations against global capitalism and the way in which global capitalism affects in an adverse sense the notion of individual human rights, or even collective human rights, was the alleged relationship between the sort of disproportionality between the increase in global capitalism as the only viable economic paradigm that we have, and the dislocation of individuals within society. And we saw that that dislocation, in a bad sense, could come as a consequence of sort of the willful intent to exploit laborers and laborers through the rise of global capitalism. What we're going to do in this section is we're going to look at potential benefits, potential advantages, and disadvantages to sort of globalism. We're going to look at globalism and its unfolding within the 21st century in optimistic terms. We're also going to look at globalism and its unfolding in pessimistic terms. And I'll leave it for you, the viewer, to decide if it's going to unfold optimistically or pessimistically. Again, the analysis is coming out of the book Human Rights in the World Community. The entire lecture series is a product of my analysis and reading into this text and tons and tons of secondary literature. Again, all of the text can be, all of the notes can be gained from just clicking the banner ad or the link in the description field. Download the PDF, read through the PDF, and use it to help you understand more of globalization and capitalism. With that, we're going to begin this analysis into sort of globalism, capitalism, and its relationship to human rights. And the first half, 4.1, will look at an optimistic take on this unfolding relationship. So this is human rights. And this is section 4.1. And we're on page 7, the middle of page 7, and we're going to talk specifically about the development of human rights within a globalized world. So, the development of human rights within a globalized world. First point you should know is the notion of democratic peace theory. And I've discussed democratic peace theory, and I've given you a link to the lecture notes. I've done another lecture series in which I discuss the idea of democratic peace theory. The link will take you to the notes, but I also have corresponding video. So I'm not going to go through and talk about what democratic peace theory is per se, but you can guess from the title is that peace is attained through the rise and, if you will, the spread of democracy, right? The democratization, if you will, of the global landscape, socio-political landscape. So the idea is democratic nations don't war with each other. Insofar as democratic nations primarily don't war with each other, that they use other means to de-escalate potential conflict that could otherwise be escalated. Democratic peace theory purports that the spread of democracy is the best means of preserving global peace. is sort of like the real super consolidated point. The first point to recognize in 1.1 is that modern democratic states, buttressed by the rule of law and by a civic culture of activism and political freedom, are more likely than any other type of political system to protect human rights. So what we've done right now is we've connected the notion of democratic peace theory and democratization to human rights, right? To human rights. So now when we talk about human rights are understood, right? The defense of human rights is itself understood, quote, activism and political freedom are more likely than any other type of political system to protect human rights, right? So it's not only that democracies help to preserve peace, the argument is that democracy helps to protect human rights, right? Democracy, and I'll flesh it out, democracy protects human democracy protects human rights. So again, to facilitate a better understanding, read the other notes that I have on democratic peace theory. You can watch that video. It'll make sense of this account of the sort of optimistic interpretation that globalization really will be an advantage to the global economic superstructure, if you will, and that we shouldn't understand it in terms of a pessimistic interpretation. The next point is the following. Whether good or ill in human rights terms, social relations will change, right? Whether we're talking about this transformation as we saw in Polanyi's account of the Great Transformation, right? Whether or not you want to talk about sort of changes in migration patterns, mobilization of your community, be it from an agricultural to an urban, be it from conceptually religious to a secular, whether you want to interpret that transformation, that change, that mobilization as good or bad, it's undeniable that there has been a change, right? There has been this shift, right? So social relations will change. Right? When we're talking about globalization, social relations will change. It's a matter of interpretation whether or not you view that change, the change in social relations, as a good thing, or you view it as a bad thing. The fact is, from sort of an empirical quantitative account, is that it has changed. The nature of that change, at least analyzing that change, is what's at focus in this particular section of the lecture, right? So, social relations will change in the new global society. Societies will become more fluid. Individuals will be more mobile. Social norms will change. And traditional roles will give way to new ideas on how to behave. And I discussed a lot of this already, right? So that when we talk about the conceptual shift from Karl Polanyi's account of the Great Transformation into globalization as the, if you will, incarnation of the second Great Transformation, the emphasis is on the transformation, right? Globalization increases the mobility of society. There will be increasing demands on multilingual, bilingual proficiency among many members of the population. Typically, people in the United States have been sort of, protected from necessarily having to be bilingual because English is arguably a global language. With the rise of globalization, that's going to be more of a detriment than a benefit, right? The being not just bilingual but multilingual will be a linguistic transformation in the global population. Educational resources and the accessibility to education is going to be also a global transformation. My participation in YouTube as a public intellectual, as a public educator, is transforming the educational paradigm. Political transformations and economic transformations will happen. What we've recognized is that though there will be conventional differences, and I said this before, though there will be conventional differences in educational, political, social, cultural paradigms, there is, in a sense, one monolithic economic paradigm that paradigm is global capitalism, because there isn't an alternative to